Will Marvel Phase 4 be good? It can be, especially if they do one thing. Hi, I'm Nando, and I V Movies. I'd say the beginning of Phase 4 has been promising, but rocky. Got WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Black Widow, Loki, What If, and Shang-Chi. A lot of my issues with Phase 4 deal with stories that start strong but kind of fall apart at the end. So if Phase 4 is going to work, it'll really help if the stories, the foundation upon which the movies are built, are strong. And luckily, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has a lot of projects coming up that are either confirmed to be, or certainly should be influenced by some of the best comic runs of the last 20 years. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through my 5 personal favorites that I believe, if adapted faithfully, will be grand slams. So let's get excited about the future of comic book movies from this mega studio. Oh no, does this mean it's a fandom? Can I even legally call it a fandom? Maybe we'll call it a nandome for the purposes of this video so we don't get sued. Oh god, and am I gonna have to do fandom speak? Is anybody here? Rock? Flulaborg? Oh, I guess if we're here, welcome to 2021's MCU Nandome, where we will take a look at the comics behind some of the biggest movies and TV shows Marvel has to offer in Phase 4. Let's start strong with a look at the comic behind the most anticipated Christmas mini-series of 2021. This is Hawkeye.
This is probably the most obvious pick. Consistently hailed as one of the best comics of the 21st century, and it deserves it. Matt Fraction and David Aja's Hawkeye, My Life as a Weapon. 3 things I love about this comic that I hope they translate to the story. First off, Hawkeye is a mess. I don't know how exactly Hawkeye was written in the books before Fraction's Hawkeye. Like, obviously I've read him on a handful of team books, and I guess he was sarcastic and kind of an everyman, but he never left a big mark on me. But man, the Hawkeye series redefined Clint Barton in a phrase that's best summed up in 3 words: human car crash. Clint is a disaster, making bad decisions, operating on no sleep, drinking coffee out of the pot. He is leagues more of both an idiot and a slob than the MCU Clint has been so far, but there's definitely room for him to fall. And it works for his character because at the end of the day, Clint is a decent guy who always wants to do the right thing, even when the right thing is incredibly reckless and nearly gets him killed. He's a sucker for a lost cause and can see the good in everybody except for himself. It is unbelievably endearing. Second thing, Kate bites off more than she can chew. Where Clint is a mess who lacks confidence, Kate should be incredibly competent and sure of herself. However, she is not without her flaws. Kate needs to get in way over her head, like so far over her head that she nearly drowns, constantly. And Clint doesn't need to save her. Kate can get herself out of trouble, but she really needs to struggle. Just like we love Hawkeye because he always does the right thing, we love Kate because she never gives up on anything or anyone. And number 3, trick arrows are cool. I think the movies have done a very okay job at this. Clint does seem to have some trick arrows. In Avengers, he even has this wonderful bow that lets him create special arrows in the quiver. But they always seem to fall into 2 categories: explodes or the arrow is a gun. On one occasion, he used the magical USB arrow, but besides that, the arrows were almost always designed to kill aliens or robots. There are so many other arrows that Clint should have. A sonic arrow, a sticky arrow, a net arrow, a smoke bomb arrow, a suction cup arrow, and of course, a boomerang arrow. You've got to respect it. And based off of what we've seen from the trailers, it definitely looks like this series will pull some plot points and some aesthetics from the Matt Fraction Hawkeye run, so we are off to a good start.
Wow, great stuff. Now let's look at another hero who fans have been clamoring for since 2014. The hierarchy of power in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is about to change forever. This is Mighty Thor.
So this is the one I've not read all of. No disrespect to Jason Aaron, I came back to comics around 2017 and I think I was just burned out on swords and sorcery by Game of Thrones. This is not to say I have not read any of it. I've read the Gore story and the Mighty Thor, which are the ones Thor 4 is most likely going to focus on. I also read War of the Realms and Original Sin, although I'm not sure if that's written by Jason Aaron. Anyway, Gore the God Butcher is the perfect villain for Thor right now. We have challenged the concept of Odin and Asgard, but we haven't really explored what the gods even are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Besides the Asgardians, we have the Celestials, the Eternals, Bast, the Great Protector, Dormammu, witches, and I guess Jesus. But where do other guys like Hercules fit into this? And what happens when the gods disagree with each other? Do they interact at all? Gorr is a fun way to explore the gods of the MCU. He's basically an alien whose life is Luis's story from Ant-Man if he didn't get the van at the end. Gorr blames the gods for not answering his prayers as he lost everything. And he does kind of have a point. The gods in this story do not answer prayers. Clearly, that's not something Thor's been up to. So, Gorr uses the Necro Sword to kill them all. Not sure what he's gonna do now, since Hela probably took the Necro Sword to her grave, but Gorr as a character should really work now. I am a little concerned with Love and Thunder potentially doing with Gorr what Ragnarok did with Hela. After all, Ragnarok was a ton of fun, but the seriousness of the Ragnarok side of the story was very frequently undercut by the silliness of the Planet Hulk story. Gorr, more than maybe any other Thor villain, is as serious as a heart attack, and I don't think Taika can't pull that off. I just hope right as Gorr destroys Olympus or whatever, Korg doesn't make a joke like the Asgard Foundation bit. And then Jason Aaron is also responsible for Mighty Thor, Jane Foster. I am less sure how this is going to play out since the circumstances surrounding Mighty Thor are very different. Thor is no longer worthy and cannot lift Mjolnir, which in Avengers Endgame, Thor demonstrates that he is very much worthy. And also, Mjolnir no longer exists. And the mystery surrounding Mighty Thor probably won't work since we all know that Natalie Portman is back as Jane Foster Thor. So we'll see. But this run is widely regarded as some of the best Thor stories ever, so there's a lot of good stuff for the movies to work with.
Wow, great stuff. Hey, is anyone feeling a little green? No, I'm not talking about the Hulk. This is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Hulk stuff happens off screen. No, I'm talking about his cousin, Jennifer Walters. This is She-Hulk.
She-Hulk is the new character I am most excited for, and I really struggled to find the right She-Hulk run to talk about here. You've got the Savage She-Hulk origin by Stan Lee. Then there's the Sensational She-Hulk by John Byrne, where she becomes self-aware. And then I've heard good things about the newer run by Charles Soule. But when it comes to great She-Hulk stories, to adapt to TV, it is Dan Slott all the way. Slott's She-Hulk skips the origin and just focuses on the lawyer stuff. Jennifer Walters is kind of a mess, and after getting fired from her law practice, she gets an invitation to join a prestigious law firm that is starting up the first superhero-specific law office. Stuff like Spider-Man suing J. Jonah Jameson, a dead guy being a witness at his own murder trial, Howard the Duck suing George Lucas for not making the amount of movies he agreed to in a contract. I believe this is the perfect entry point for the series. Have Jen already have the blood transfusion from her cousin Bruce Banner and already be a superhuman, and then gets fired by her current law office for getting too much attention. So Jen either starts or is just recruited by the first superhero specific practice. Jen can litigate cases related to the snap, or mind control, or someone using magic legs in a basketball game, the Westview residents, and of course, she can argue a case against Matt Murdock. I actually have a couple ideas for other cases that Jen can argue, and I talk about that in this video's Nebula Plus segment. I'll explain what that is at the end of the video. The other fun part about She-Hulk that Slott's run plays with is the double identity. Jen can switch freely between Jennifer Walters and She-Hulk, at least in the first 12 or so issues. But she can do it whenever she wants, and unlike the Hulk, Jen retains all of her intelligence as She-Hulk. So, Jen values being She-Hulk and stops feeling comfortable in her regular body, because you never know when an alien is going to come out of nowhere and sucker punch you. This run also comes up with a new origin for Titania. It's basically the ultimate supervillain glow-up, and it introduces characters like Pug, Ditto, and features a fair amount of John Jameson, who I assume exists in the current MCU? I don't know. Either way, if you take Law & Order and place it in the middle of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, anchored by Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk, this show should absolutely rule. Also, if we do the Slott run, I can't wait to see how Tatiana Maslany says, "Oh my gosh, which is something that She-Hulk says like once a page.
Wow, great stuff. Hey, do you like Batman? Well, this guy's kinda like Batman, except more unhinged and slightly more violent, and also he believes the Egyptian gods are real, and maybe they are, who knows? The hierarchy of power in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is about to stay the same. This is Moon Knight.
Okay, so this one feels more like a wish than anything else, since we don't really know all that much about the Moon Knight show. However, if I could make just one thing come true, even maybe above Justin Hammer and Armor Wars, it would be that the first season of Moon Knight is based on Jeff Lemire's 14-issue run, for one very specific reason. You see, Moon Knight is a story about a mercenary named Mark Spector who gets left for dead in Egypt and is saved by the Egyptian moon god Khonshu, and Mark is drafted and becomes the god's agent on Earth, the Moon Knight. Kind of. Because Mark also has dissociative identity disorder, and he also believes he is a taxi driver, a movie producer, and a space adventurer. So maybe this whole Moon Knight thing is just another personality. Maybe none of that Egypt stuff actually happened at all. And that is the central tension in Lemire's run. Mark begins the story in an asylum, being told by the orderlies and administrators that the Moon Knight is just another violent identity that's been getting Mark in trouble, and he needs to reject it. And hey, some of the people at the hospital seem to kind of know something about Mark that Mark doesn't really know. So over the course of the series, he's able to piece this together. Honestly, I've read a few books and seen a bunch of movies with a similar premise. Maybe the whole thing is in the protagonist's head all along, but I never made it as far into one of these stories as I did with Lemire's Moon Knight, and still think maybe this is all in his head. Like, the comic does an unbelievable job of constantly messing with Mark's reality and the audience's sense of comfort. It isn't till near the last few issues that we really get a handle on exactly what's going on and believe it. Part of that has to do with the fantastic art by Francesco Francavilla, James Stocco, Wilfredo Torres, and Greg Smallwood. Every personality and reality gets its own style, color palette, layout. The comic sells the alternate personalities, and rapidly switching between them becomes as disorienting for the reader as it is for Mark. The reason this needs to be season 1 should be pretty obvious. We cannot do a full first season of Moon Knight and then a second where we ask whether any of that is real. We have one chance to introduce Mark and his world in which we can reasonably expect the audience to question the reality of the story. After season 1, people are going to expect that Mark is at least kind of who he says he is. Moon Knight and Khonshu are all real things. Heck, maybe he'll even meet another Avenger or make an appearance in a team-up movie or show, and after that, certain parts of the reality are pretty clearly real. Doctor Strange has seen him and bought into the Egyptian gods thing, so we can't pull off a story that questions whether any of that happened, unless that story comes before that character does anything significant. We are just going off Mark's sometimes unreliable memory. And if it turns out that this series is not based off of Lemire's Moon Knight run, go read Lemire's Moon Knight run, because it's terrific. In fact, read it anyway, because it's really, really good.
Wow, great stuff. Now, let's look at the final comic that I am very excited about Marvel adapting in Phase 4. Well, okay, there's other ones. Let's look at, here's some other ones that we're not going to put in the thing, but other ones that are good. Okay, this is Young Avengers.
Last but not least, Kieran Gillen. Not that one. Kieran Gillen is one of my favorite writers, one of the 5 who I know I will love whatever they write, up there with Hickman, King, Morrison, and Jones. There's another Young Avengers run by Alan Heinberg and Jim Chung, which, I enjoy too. And of course, there's the Children's Crusade, but Gillen's run, known as Style Over Substance, feels more like the team we will end up with. Now, there is not currently a Young Avengers anything on the schedule. However, it is happening, don't you worry. I wouldn't be surprised if it's announced Disney Plus Day in a couple of weeks. The team comp will more than likely be a mix of both versions. You'll get Wiccan, Patriot, Hawkeye, America Chavez, Stature, and Speed. and maybe Miss Marvel. I'm betting Kid Loki will be an antagonist turned friend. I could also see Marvel Boy introduced in The Marvels, since he is a Marvel after all. Side note, they should just introduce Novar in Marvels, not as a hero or a villain, just an overconfident Kree who was bred by the Kree army to be perfect and he knows it. Cast Zac Efron, it's perfect. As far as villains for Young Avengers, couldn't guess. Maybe a Kang, like the Scarlet Centurion. Maybe they do the evil space mom from this run of the comics. Maybe have Hulkling be the villain, start him as an antagonist. The reason this team rules is because this book specifically focuses heavily on the team as a found family. They don't all know each other or really expect to work together as a team. Mother, an interdimensional demon thing, gets brought into our universe by accident, and none of the adults can see what she's doing or believe the kids when they tell them what's going on. So the teen heroes need to work together to stop Mother before everyone dies. They all have different agendas, histories with one another, but the kids eventually feel like more than a team. And I think this needs to start with the heroes just finding each other. Not how, like in the original Young Avengers origin, Iron Lad just finds a list of guys that could be the Young Avengers and he gets them all together. It feels a little forced. I want a natural team up. Big danger presents itself, they all answer the call, and meet. Also, this team specifically is super queer, which is cool. The MCU has been flirting with it for a while, but this is probably a good place to commit. Also, this story can introduce Prodigy, the kid with the power to copy knowledge from those around him, but not specifically get into where those powers come from. He's just enhanced. Later, we can reveal that he's a mutant. As much as I'm excited for Avengers 5, and I am, this is the team up I really want and think we need. It's fresh, lower stakes, silly. The characters can make dumb decisions because they're kids. And I think after things like Eternals, WandaVision, Loki, and Moon Knight, the MCU could benefit from making a show aimed squarely at children, as long as they don't make Kid Loki floss, then shut it all down.
Wow, great stuff. I'm gonna be honest, I took a nap and didn't finish Fandom, so I'm not sure how it ends. So I'm gonna go take a nap now. I'll see you next year for 2022's MCU Nandome. Unless I forget.
Alright, you guys, great news. I made it out of the Fandom, and I'm talking about She-Hulk. That is the Nebula Plus bit for this video. Here's a little tease. So this would actually be really fun, honestly, in Armor Wars. Have Justin Hammer buy the merchandising rights for War Machine. I give pitches for 7 cases that I think they could do in the She-Hulk show. I also talk about Armor Wars a little bit because it's kind of tangential to one of the pitches. Justin Hammer could be like, well, actually, I made War Machine. Most of the design choices of War Machine were mine, and you guys just used like a plain old Iron Man, so you would not be selling War Machine, merchandise without me. And you can watch the extended version of this video where I talk about those pitches on Nebula. If you don't know Nebula, it's a terrific subscription streaming service that I helped to create, where you can watch my videos early, ad-free, without sponsor reads, and you get extra bonus Nebula Plus content like me talking about She-Hulk. And if that wasn't good enough on its own, we have a terrific bundle with this video's sponsor, Curiosity Stream, where you can watch Curiosity Stream's high-quality documentary content on things like squirrels and swords and demolitions, like The Demolition Man, where he talks about destroying bridges and other structures, how difficult that is, and it's very cool. A lot of planning goes into it. So you can get access to Curiosity Stream and Nebula, where you can watch the extended version of this video for $15 a year. Not $15 a month, $15 a year. If you go to curiositystream.com/NandoVMovies. And as always, thank you to everybody who supports me on Patreon. You guys are amazing. Thank you to everybody who listens to the podcast, Mostly Nitpicking. That is my podcast. And thank you to everybody that follows me on Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram. I'm NandoVMovies on all those platforms. That's all I got. Stay safe. See you next time.